If you've been here past couple weeks and you're paying close attention to the bulletin last week and this week, you'll notice that I mixed up the gospel lessons from last week and this week. Last week's readings were supposed to be what we read this morning, and this morning we're supposed to read about the shepherd and the lost coin. And I really wish that I wouldn't have made that mistake, because what minister preaches on hating your parents on a baptism Sunday? Really? There is, well, let me say a little bit more about that. There's this strange word, powerful word, that I'm sure jumped out at you while I was reading. You can't follow me, says Jesus, unless you hate. And the word is, it stands, and it's meant to say that when all is said and done, your highest priority is God. But it's a word that it's hyperbole, but it's also comparative. It says that you're to love God more than the rest of these. Choosing between love and hate is sort of the foundations of all thinking. We're used to choosing between good and bad in the day, but most often we're choosing between two goods. Do I choose this thing that's good? Or do I choose this thing that's good? Which one is better? That's the foundation of the art of ethical thinking. And Jesus is saying to his disciples, using the strong word hate, at the end of the day, if you want to follow me, you've got to hate everything else or love everything else less than you love me. And then you can follow me. The scripture lesson that I read this morning, it's like a hamburger. It's like a double patty hamburger. And you know how a good hamburger is supposed to have a decent bun to meat ratio? Are you with me? You know that rule of the barbecue? This scripture passage has an awful bun to meat ratio. It's got that top part that I read with the word hate in it, so big, thick bun hate part, and it's got these two meat parables that are supposed to offset so much bun, and then it's got this tiny base to wrap everything up. The parables are meant to contextualize this part about hating everything, letting go of everything in order to follow Jesus Christ. But it's just not enough, especially through the preacher serving this hamburger parable to the congregation. I sound like I'm being apologetic for what Jesus is saying, but I don't intend to be. I want to convey the idea that there are times in life when you have to choose between the things that you love. Anyone who's ever had to go off to war knows the pull between two goods. I love my family. I want to stay and protect them. But then I feel this duty to answer the call to serve my country. Which do I choose? And many a family has experienced that the pain of having to choose between one or the other towards some greater good. Jesus is telling some parables that we could put it this way. It's like a buyer beware statement. If you want to follow me, you got to know that I'm going to put those very hard choices before you. And I want you to consider that before you follow me. I want you not to be naive about the cost of being a disciple, the cost of following me. Don't be naive about it. Consider it. And each of the parables tells a story about someone who has to sit down and run the spreadsheet, check the numbers, count. Which should I go depending on my preparations? I'm building a tower. Do I have enough Lego pieces to do it? If not, it's going to be incomplete. I need to do some consideration before I commit to something. Now, that's one of the ironies of having kids, is you don't understand the full commitment until you're looking in the rear view mirror, right? But still, considering the challenges of any call in life is so important for the commitments that we have. And then a bunch of planning can happen after that. So in this parable, first the tower, and then this parable of a king who's trying to calculate the cost of war, you have this consideration before you commit, and then after you commit, you've got this planning. But the commitment is important. Planning, consideration. I'm going to sound like an old man here, but it seems that increasingly in our day, consideration, weighing out the cost of the commitment, doesn't get everything that it deserves. There's almost an attitude in our society of, I'll go, I'll be there, unless I got something better that comes up. We've moved from a society that has had to plan far in advance to, let's just coordinate at the last moment, and I'll let you know if I can make it. I think that's a bit of a loss. Of course, you can have overkill when it comes to planning and consideration. I mean, the extreme version of planning ahead of time to make sure that everybody knows what's going to happen next. The extreme version of that happened this week. Succession planning for the monarchy. Everybody knows ahead of time when the queen dies, this is what happens next, and this, and this. And that's a good thing so that we can avoid chaos. Everyone is prepared for their commitment. I think in these parables, Jesus is saying something very similar. He's saying, I want you to be relatively ready when I give you the call to follow me. Because we're going to go some places that you're not going to feel ready to go. I don't want you to regret the decision. Do some thought before you make a commitment. So, today's society, please be aware that I'm totally committed to remaining fully uncommitted to commitment. I feel this way some days, especially as September rolls around, and in our culture, the new year is at January 1st, the new year is after Labor Day. And all of our commitments then jump into our face. And it's easy after the summer to think, I'd really just love to live in the moment. But there's this part of life, and maybe it's a part of being an adult, of being responsible, that says, be prepared. We do all kinds of planning when it comes to finances. Got a cartoon up here. You have a 30-year mortgage, a 5-year car lease, and a lifetime gym membership, but you're afraid of commitment. Sometimes if we compare the amount of weighing of options, running a spreadsheet when it comes to a mortgage or our retirement investments, planning for the children's RESPs, no stone is left unturned. But when it comes to our relationships, when it comes to that interpersonal stuff, we sometimes